What's going on, fam?
What's
Happy
up?
Wednesday.
Hey,
What's
we
up?
back
What's
at it.
up? We back at it. Episode 5
Yeah,
of Get the
5.
Bag podcast. I'm your host, Gladia, my co-host, Tim. We up in
That's
here.
right. That's right.
Really excited for today's topic. How to invest in your first, or how to purchase your first investment. We can even talk about how to invest in a property, but um, I think it's a kind of a personal connection because we're both kind of in the process right now. We're both doing it two different ways. It's
hmm
perfect. We can kind of provide some insight. But we're going to be talking through 3 tips that we recommend, or that's kind of helped us throughout our process in purchasing an investment property and what that looks like, and then we'll kind of maybe elaborate um, on our experience as well. So um, really excited for you, for everyone to tap in with us. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah. So
That's cool.
Tim, why don't you hit us off with the first tip?
Yeah. So this is very important in deciding on kind of what direction you want to go with your first purchase, and it's research and due diligence. You definitely have to um, do your research and due diligence, no matter what direction you go, because there's so many different ways. And people usually know the typical way, right? Is that they get a typical loan, they find the property, they purchase the property, whether they use it for rental or whatever. But then you get into different things like house hacking, or what you have to learn what is your target, what's the
Mm-hmm.
budget, all of those things that kind of go into to do the research side, right? Like I know that you're going through this situation with like getting FHA, so there's programs
Mm-hmm.
out there for first-time home buyers, and if it's an investment property, you can go through house hacking, and tell them a
Right.
little bit more about how house hacking works, and because I know that you're kind of going through that route too, so
Mm-hmm.
then this falls into the research and development and why you picked this route too. So
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, um, initially, like years ago, I was always like, yeah, I want to have rentals, but I really know what it meant. And when I kind of got into the real estate space, there was like, I think there was, I was listening to podcasts. They were talking about house hacking this, house hacking that, and I was like, what the hell is house hacking? And come to find out, house hacking is like when you purchase a property under your name, you live in it, but then you rent out, depending on the property, right? If you buy a single family house and it's say a 3 bedroom or a four
hmm
bedroom, you live in one of the rooms, but you rent out the other rooms to others. So the goal of house hacking is you use other people's money
hmm
to fund your mortgage, and depending on like the how big of your note, which equals the mortgage. Like say your rent or your mortgage is $3,000, but then you rent out to 3 people in a
hmm
house, like 1,500. That's what 3,000 4,500 maybe,
right.
that again you're netting 1,500 out of that. You're not even paying for your mortgage.
hmm
So that maybe somebody single, like if you're living with a family and
Yeah.
going the route of, you can still house hack, but maybe not in a single family home. Maybe you
Right.
want to do a multifamily, which is 4 units and less.
hmm
And this was really important for me to understand too with the FHA, is that anything past 4 units in a
hmm
multifamily, that takes you to commercial, right?
Yep.
So you
That's correct.
then you wouldn't then qualify for FHA. It would be a commercial loan, which is a whole other situation. So
Absolutely.
if you want to do an FHA and you want to do multifamily, it would have to be 4 units or less. So maybe with the family, you can live in a separate unit that's your own, but then you have 3 other units that again you can rent out, and it goes towards the monthly mortgage. Um, So that was always something in the back of my mind, and
Mhm.
especially as I was writing out my goals, I was like, that's a big part of them is purchasing a property to house hack because I'm like, I want to live in like a really nice house as like my primary
Right.
residence. But what a lot of people do is they'll do the opposite. They'll buy their primary residence first. They'll go all in on it, right?
Mhm.
And then it's like there's no equity built on it. Usually people buy like a brand new house, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, if that's what you're looking for, but if your
Sure.
goal is like I want to build a rental portfolio,
Mhm.
that's the route I want to take. The thing with also with house hacking and FHA is usually you need at least a W-2 is helpful to have because they
Yeah.
ask for your previous work experience. Have you kept a job for 2 or 3 years? So maybe somebody that's starting out as an entrepreneur or has been a freelancer for a while, it may be a little difficult to qualify for that, but it doesn't mean you can't. The great thing about FHA is I think the lowest is like 580, which is
Yeah.
really reasonable.
Yeah.
Not sure what the interest rate is. I think
Right.
people like to throw out 3.5% interest rate. But if you do have a 580, your interest rate may be a little bit more.
Yeah.
So just something to keep in mind.
Yeah. And then also with that, because you have to, this is part of the due diligence stage, is that if you have a higher interest rate, you might not work out the numbers correctly to, actually pay. You might have to pay like $100 more in rent because, it's not covering the whole mortgage, right? So it just all
Right.
depends on also that due diligence of running the numbers correctly and understanding, what your actual FHA loan is, amount and the interest rate too, because that's going to help you out in planning on
Right.
what kind of property you're going to get and what the market rents are in that area. So I think it's very
Mhm.
important in understanding that as well too. It's you know definitely that's one avenue, and then um, you know uh, my avenue has mostly been partnering up with investors and what strategy is going to be helpful for you. So that's something that we can dive into a little bit more on the third one. So
Mhm.
and then we can go from there. So what's our second one?
Yeah, before we move on to that, one thing I forgot to mention is
Yeah.
picking your market too.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's a big part. A market meaning like a city, location. For us in Cali, it's a little bit different, right? We can't. It really depends. Like for me, like this kind of is my dilemma right now. Is like, okay, do I want to start my investment property in California,
Mm,
given it's not landlord friendly? That's the
right.
dilemma I'm dealing with right now, and I may need to ask a few people around. And so I'm like, okay, should I consider investing out of state and starting there, where and investing in a market that's on the up and ups and is landlord friendly, because I don't want to be stuck in a situation again where I'm out in Cali and something happens and I'm dealing with tenant issues where I can't even get them out.
Right.
So there's other ways we can go, like Section 8, and that's a whole other thing
Yeah.
going into like your strategy. But your market is a really important thing to consider when you're doing your research and due diligence. But I think the second tip is a big part. Is it may be part of your due diligence as well, but
Mhm.
is knowing your budget, your
Yep.
finances.
Mhm.
And I think I've heard when I went through, because I'm working with a lender right now on my FHA, or my property search is, they have their calculators, but it's also understanding. Okay, let me look at my expenses.
Mhm.
How much can I afford as a mortgage? Um,
Right.
and I think something that the lenders consider is your debt to income ratio.
Mhm.
I think if it's above 40%, like your rate may be a little bit different. It has to be under a certain percentage. It's either 40 or 30%. I can't recall. Don't quote me on it. But I think you want to keep your debt low, and so that's one thing I'm kind of working on too, is like just paying down my credit cards, getting my credit at a good position so that once we are ready to go, maybe I can get a better rate, and then by the time we move in, I'm in a better position to maybe even get a better credit card, a business credit, whatever the case may be.
Right.
But really understanding your finances as you go is and knowing like, okay, I may qualify for 600,000,
Mhm.
but do I really
Mhm.
want to hit the limit? It puts
Yeah.
me, my back against the wall. So maybe, I should lower my limit to 400, get something more reasonable. You never want to get
Mhm.
like if you qualify for the top number, you never want to go up to that because then it's like
Right.
you're not in it's all about leverage and you're putting yourself in kind of a difficult position. So yeah, what would you say for your finances from the perspective of somebody that doesn't have a W-2 and is maybe relying on partnering up with an investor?
Yeah, so that's the other route that you could go is, partnering up with an investor. If you really don't have any credit or you don't have any kind of W-2 or show any kind of income really is another avenue is just partner up with an investor. And the investor would have
Hmm.
cash on it and basically you come up with a split like 50 a 50-50, or usually on deals like that it's 50-50. But like if it's a
Hmm.
land deal and they want to build something on there, then you can go 80-20 or whatever the case may be. But usually on these type of deals it's like 50-50. So
Right.
my suggestion is that make the numbers work. You can still live in that, right? You can take advantage of that, but like because a lot of people might not have the 3.5% to put down on FHA, right? So they might
Right.
go in with an investor and say, hey, I had to live in here for a year. Any revenue we make, we'll split that. And then once we can leverage this onto the next deal, I'll bring you on to the next deal. And then you don't even have to put cash on the next deal, right? Or you
Right.
can refinance that, cash them out, and get another property. So there's a couple ways of exiting that situation.
Hmm.
But I think it's just important to understand, like you're saying, your finances, what you can afford. But there's other options for you if you don't go kind of FHA or VA loan or any other loan that you currently um, could get for an investment property too. So, excuse me.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I think anywhere where you can add value, like you were kind of mentioning, where connecting with somebody who does have money.
Hmm.
I know this all the time, where like maybe they do qualify, but they don't want to put the down payment themselves.
Sure.
So they'll partner with like, hey, can you just front me money for the down payment, and then I'll pay you
Hmm.
back in kind of the same thing. Where after a certain time, which by the way, with FHA, you have to live in the property. It's an owner
Yep.
occupied loan.
Exactly.
You can't, although, I know some sketch, I know a landlord, I would say a landlord, will not be named, uh, purchased a property, FHA, owner occupied, but then had us as the tenants,
Right.
um, for over a year. And like we were getting like their mail, and I was like, dude, this is so sketch. So they're
That's
out there,
totally
but don't do
sketch.
that.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
No,
It's
no,
so,
we don't recommend that.
um,
Right.
no, do not do that. So when you purchase a FHA, you have to live in the property for a
Yep.
year, and then you can refinance and
Hmm.
do the such. You can get an FHA, I believe, as an investment property, but it's a lot more down. It's like 20% down. So
Hmm.
unless you
Hmm.
have that cash upfront, or again partner with somebody with a down payment, you don't have to live. It doesn't have to be under your name necessarily, and you don't
Hmm.
have to live in the property. So I
Yeah.
think, yeah, just adding anywhere you can add value if you are going to partner with someone. Another kind of route where it's like if you don't have money is leverage your W-2, and I talk about this a lot because I still have a 9 to 5. Is typically 9 to 5s that a you have a 401k. I'm sure Tim will join us in a minute. But you have a 401k usually that you're putting in money, and then the goal is to eventually work once you turn 65, right? That's a typical route. You then pull all that money out and you're good to go. What's up, Tim?
Yeah, sorry about that.
um, no, you're good. So then you pull the money out, and then that's kind of like your retirement. But either way, you get taxed on it. So what a lot of people do is they borrow against their 401k early to put a down payment. And this is a great way to like
Hmm.
start your investment journey. Is like, why not, bet against yourself and take that money out and put it into, don't take the money out to buy, some like a liability. Use it to buy an asset and get your money back tenfolds. So that's something I'm considering as well, which is why I'm like, well, maybe I can start in a smaller market
Hmm.
that's not
Hmm.
California, where the purchase price is a little bit less. I can get more for my money,
Right.
and I don't have to put as much down either,
Right. Right.
and use the funds from my 401k to fund that, because
Right.
I'm investing in an asset, and that asset will then like trickle into more assets. So
Hmm.
that $20,000 from a 401k turned into, maybe 100k in the long run.
Right.
So obviously everybody's different, but that's always a different route you can take.
Yeah. And it goes back to I guess, the planning stage and researching and seeing what you actually, what direction you're going to go, right? And we're just here to explain that there's other options other than, your traditional loan. There's other options. I mean, we're not lenders, or we're not you know um, uh, qualified for to give you a loan, but we're just
Right,
sharing
right.
our experience, like, of what we know within the industry, what we are currently doing, what we've seen other people do, and because there's a wealth and knowledge of the real estate field or industry, that people just don't know there's other options to explore when
Right.
getting into an investment property, and or getting your dream house. Like, you're using the house hacking to get your dream house, whether you're house hacking in
Mhm.
a different state to, you build up your portfolio for a little bit to where that's actually
Mhm.
paying for your house, your dream house here in California.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
I know that's how a lot of, kind of investors get started with their personal portfolio as well too.
Mhm.
So I think, I'm going to be utilizing that strategy, but I also, I have some investors that I can lean on to get
Sure.
maybe more of a commercial type of deal, because sometimes it falls under 6 units, and then, I may not have the 20% down to put down on it, but the investor does, and we come up with a plan for that. So
Yeah.
I think it's fun to have options, right? I think, and that's the whole point, is that I think people get stressed because their credit score, or I had to fix my credit score, or I have to have a job for 2 years and show a W-2 and stuff. But there's other options out there for you to own your own investment property, right? So.
Yeah. Absolutely. And a lot of times too, people count themselves out. Like, had I known what I know now, I would have totally purchased a rental property, or an investment property years
Right.
ago.
Right.
When my credit was really bad, I would
Mhm.
have still qualified for that. So knowledge is power, and if anything, if you get anything out of today's podcast, is I hope where it just kind of gets out some curiosity
Sure.
into what your potential, what you can do. Because a lot of times we count each other out. We think we need a lot of money up front, and really you don't. There's so
Mhm.
many ways that you can do it, and we'll definitely break some down. We're fortunate to be in a real estate group with Chris Jefferson, who
Yep.
he's been in the game, what, like 11, 12
Oop,
years. Shout out to the you. Oh, yeah.
shit.
I'm all mirror.
I know,
Um,
mirror.
so,
Which one? There you go.
and so he goes over deals that he does on a consistent basis. whether it be creative, whether it be investing with. I mean, he's been in the game for so long. He has lenders in the back of his pocket, or even like private money in the back of his pocket. So it's really interesting to be exposed to that. So if anything, like go to local RIAs, although maybe with COVID it's a little bit more sketch,
Yeah,
but
it's kind
attend
of
those online events. Um, you know, go through YouTube University and just get yourself educated on on what you can do. Reach out to a local to a lender that's well reviewed,
hmm
and has been in the game for a while, and like ask some questions. I don't think there's anything wrong with having that
no,
curiosity. You don't have
no.
to go the traditional route where it's like I have to put so much down and I'm gonna buy a big house to live in, and
hmm
that's it. And like I just for my goal was to like I want a rental portfolio of over
hmm
100 units for sure. But it starts with one. So house hacking, if anything, is the best route to go towards. And I definitely want a multifamily. I for sure want commercial.
hmm
So I may be like, even for us, like I may be down to partner where it's like, hey, I can get
hmm
a loan on something. Let's partner up.
Yep.
um you can manage the house, like you can manage the property or whatever, like anywhere to add value. So
Sure.
I just hope this podcast just kind of promotes like knowledge and curiosity to see what's out there, see what's available.
Right.
You don't have to rent. Because we were considering moving back because I'm up in the Sacramento area. We were considering moving back to the Bay Area and renting until we got a good situation. But like rents, even in Oakland, for a decent place with some space, it starts at
hmm
like $3,000.
I know.
And I
I
was
know.
like, dude, that's just insane.
That's
That makes no
crazy.
sense. I'm like, we might as well just buy a house
hmm
and rent it out or whatever the case may
Right.
be. So it really does vary on what you can do, but like really grow and we talk about too is like your net worth, your network.
Your
If
network. Yeah.
right, like connect with people around you and mention like, hey, like I'm interested in buying an investment property. You never know like who you may have in your network that can help you out.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's important too, is this, being able to tell people what you're trying to do. And, it's amazing. Like, I think we get trapped in this thing like, oh, I'm just not going to tell anybody. I'm going to do it myself. And I think,
Right.
part of the program that we're in is that we're always sharing something with everybody, and someone can help you out, and you just don't know who that is. So you got to take that approach to networking, right? And, tell them what you're doing. And, once you tell them what they're doing, they're going to tell you what they're doing. And if it's a match, then you guys can work together and go from there. And, just to piggyback on, California, because I think it's important to also to know what laws have passed in the
Mm-hmm.
market that you're going into, right?
And
Because
part of the research. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Because the one of the things here in California is that they had passed where you can build multi-units on your residential property. I think it's up to
Right.
10. I just have to clarify. Don't quote me on
Mm.
that, but it's up to 10
Right.
units, right? And but it's based on having that space available on your current property. And we're having a lot of issues with homelessness and those, so that was passed because of that, to give more people
Mm.
options to in live in different communities, and giving the owners
Mm-hmm.
options to have more units. Like, we know about the ADUs and stuff like that, but this gives the owner a little bit more options to build something else, and then get more income in, or just pay off their mortgage, utilizing
Yeah.
that law, right? So I think
Right.
it's important just to research that as well too. So
Yeah, that's a really good point. Um, one of the markets I'm looking in California, if I was to move there, was Oakland. I love Oakland. I lived there for many years and was sad to leave. But COVID and everything, just
yeah.
needed the extra space. But Oakland, it's really interesting. It's really it's been on the up and coming. for years now. There's been a lot of gentrification, lots of homelessness when I was living down there. It's just like every corner you're seeing that, unfortunately. But a lot of what you consider the bad neighborhoods are now like, you can see investors are going down there, and there's gentrification going. But the way the lots are built there, it's so
Mhm.
long, like the parcels are so long that
Right.
you can put on, and that's like, and I've noticed too, and when I'm looking at MLS listings, like it
Mhm.
says like huge lot, huge opportunity, like you can live in the main house and there's enough room for an ADU. Like that's a
Mhm.
lot of like the main descriptions in the listings.
Mhm.
And even then, like there's people who are doing it illegally for a
Mhm.
while, and now kind of have the opportunity. Now you do have to bring it up to code, and such, but like people, there's lots of opportunities out there, and it really varies on the market. Some have more multifamily than others, but
Sure.
that's a great property to purchase where it's like, okay, I can buy a lot or a land that has a single family in the front and then maybe a quad in the back.
Mm.
Like
Mhm.
that's 6 units, or wait,
Yeah.
no, that's 5 units. So technically it's a commercial in a sense.
Right.
You have 5 units. Once you move out, you have the main house you can rent out at even a higher price because it's more
Mhm.
space, perhaps. And then you have a quad in the back. Like
Yeah.
imagine all the rental income. So I was like, unless I run into an opportunity like that, or maybe you can build it from scratch.
Mhm.
That I think sometimes that's a little intimidating as well. It's like, well, I don't want to take on a project.
Yeah.
I don't know where to start, because that was my insights too. But another tip I learned is like another form of loan. Part of the FHA is the FHA 203K,
Mm.
where you basically combine the purchase price of the property and the construction. It's a construction loan and a residential loan clumped into
Mhm.
one. It is a longer process. I kind of started doing my research on it. It is, you should mainly use it for like a bigger project. So if it's
Mhm.
mainly cosmetics, like a small cosmetic fix, you got to fix up maybe the kitchen a little bit, or maybe just the bathrooms. Maybe it's not worth it. Maybe you can just find your own contractor, or like partner up with
Right.
somebody. But if it's a pretty big project where you have to take down walls and like
Mhm.
maybe build up, maybe you have a unit, an ADU in the back, but it's not fixed up.
Mhm.
Maybe it's worth getting that. And what they do is they contract somebody, like a certified, there's certified FHA 203K contractors, and so they have to do things by code.
Oh,
And
okay.
I think you do have to find somebody that's like worth working with. So
Mhm.
that's where it's like maybe use your network to like be like, okay, who's a
Mhm.
good 203K loan contractor. And
Sure.
then that's why it takes so long, because there's so many steps that they
Yeah.
require, not only like with the lender, but like, and then I think you have to work with a specialist, 2 or 3 case
Mhm.
specialist.
Wow.
But there's a checklist. The contractor has to go in and check everything and like basically comp out like, okay, this is how much it's going to cost to bring it up to get it all fixed up.
Mhm.
And then the thing is, such a competitive market, because it's time consuming, maybe like that's tough.
Mhm. Mhm.
Somebody with a cash offer will for sure take that, because the seller's like, I'm not going to
Yeah.
wait 2 months. So
Yeah.
that's where it depends on the market. Even speaking with our lender about it, she was like, that would probably work if it's a really, really like beat up property,
Mhm.
that basically needs to be you build up from scratch, or it's been on the market for a while.
Yeah.
That's the only
Yeah.
competitive where it's like maybe the seller is willing to sell it at that. So there's opportunities there too, where you can combine a construction loan and a purchase price, is going that route, and
Mhm.
that's something where we would consider too. But it really just vary on your situation. But I think what's become really popular recently is going the creative route, right? Like seller financing,
Mhm.
subject to
Yeah. I was
um,
gonna mention that. Yeah.
yeah.
because I think we kind of skipped over that is the creative financing part is that even when we had our guest Jeff Trimble, he did actually did a creative financing deal on his, right? So
Mhm.
it's where you work out a deal kind of with the seller and you're able to get that property, but pay a little bit monthly to that seller, right? And then you can renovate, the units if they're vacant, or maybe increase the rents to the current tenants. And so
Mhm.
it goes back to the due diligence part of, does the numbers make sense, and is there a number that works with the seller on a monthly fee, right? So I think
Mhm.
it's another option, and it's great. If Believe me, if I find a creative financing deal on an investment property, I'm jumping on that really quickly because it's another
Oh,
way,
yeah.
you can get into it without, having to
Any
put in
money,
your own
really.
any money, right? So,
Yeah, that's a great strategy, and it's become more and more popular. I think it's been going around for a while. Owner financing, which is basically the owner has to own it free and clear, so no
hmm
mortgage,
yep, that's
have
correct.
it paid 100%, and then basically you create a note, basically an agreement with the between the buyer and the seller, and so they go to the title company. It's like, okay, you create your own terms. You can be like, I'll pay you 100K in total. And sometimes some people don't require down payment, or even an interest rate. You can be like, I'm gonna pay you 100K, and with a balloon payment in 5 years, meaning like,
hmm
okay, we'll take a 30-year term and I'm gonna pay you back in 5 years. So you have
right.
to pay them back in 5 years, if that's kind of what and it really again depends on
hmm
where you're at. Do you want to do it 10 years? The longer, of course, the less the payment is. So it's like, okay, I'm gonna pay you $300 a month,
right.
and then at the end of that 5 year term, I'll pay you the rest. So that
Right.
gives you enough time to fix up the property, like you said, rent it out, and that rent, if it equals out, if you're able to rent a property, the unit for $1,000 a month, that's
hmm
$700 cash
yeah.
flow minus maybe other expenses. But
hmm
that's like that's the beauty of like real estate. I didn't have to put any of my own money
nope.
down to buy this property, maybe just to then fix it up. But I can partner with somebody like you and me can partner and be like, hey, you
hmm
you have the contractors, like I'll bring the money, like let's partner on this. So it's a
absolutely.
really good way to do it, with that specific scenario. But there's also subject to, right, which is a little bit
hmm
more complex. It's become really, really popular, due to like, Pace Morby and like
yep.
what, all the creative, scenarios that he runs into. But it's a little bit more complex. And I don't recommend somebody to just go in and be like, yeah, I want to do subject to. You have to really know your stuff, know
hmm
your like paperwork. It requires tons of paperwork. But maybe,
yeah.
Tim, you want to elaborate what a subject to is?
Yeah, subject to is usually when it's, you know, the difference between creative financing and subject to is that subject to you have a mortgage in place, right? And what you're doing is agreeing to pay that mortgage for the homeowner in return of gaining, ownership of the property, right? And then basically your job is to get renters in there that actually pay a little bit more than what the amount that you're paying for the mortgage is, right? And then
Mm-hmm.
there's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of ways to exit that. You could wholesale that deal to someone else. You could actually just get renters in there, and then you finance that to the renter, like a lease option or
Mm-hmm.
even a purchase, a lease
Right.
option purchase, right? So there's different strategies within the sub two. I think, and that's why it gets into a lot of the right way of doing it, because if you do it the wrong way, then you can get in a lot of trouble, or the seller may get into trouble as well too. So it's very I wouldn't say complicated, but I think it's just you have to be very diligent on how you do it. It's a process, right? And you just have to follow that
Right.
process on that. So I know um, Alfonso, I think just finished one in Kansas City, and Alfonso is
Hmm.
he's a coach within the U on the West
Yeah.
Coast. So shout out to our West Coast fam.
Shout out.
Yeah, so he just finished one. So we've been leaning on him to understand what that flow is, and because he's a part of Pace's group as well, and
Hmm.
so it definitely. I mean, just look up. Is it Pace Morby, right? So,
Ace Morby. Yeah,
and
sub two group or something.
yeah, sub two
I
group.
think.
Look into his program. I think it's a little bit pricey, but at the same time, you get a lot of value. You'll understand
Yeah.
that as well too. From what our coach says, Chris Jefferson, he's a good guy, great guy, and Alfonso says it's a good course too. So, we definitely respect their opinions on that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the main thing and part of your due diligence. Don't just like go into something,
No, yeah.
not knowing. Definitely reach out to experts. So for sure, like having Alfonso having done a subject to, and I can go to him and be like, okay, what kind of paperwork did you use? Like, who did you use to work your title work?
Exactly.
And he had to hire somebody to do all the paperwork
Yeah.
because it's so it involves so much paperwork. So definitely something worth looking into. But I wanted to touch on like what you're saying about the lease option, kind
Mhm.
of the exit strategy in with the owner financing. There's so much
Mhm.
flexibility with that
Mhm.
because I think this is why having a wholesaling business is really important. Like if your goal is to like get those increase your rental portfolio is because
Mhm.
that should be your foundation because you can do all types of stuff. Like if you're in front of sellers, you're making offers, you can wholesale it like you said, you can buy it and get a renter in there. You can do a lease option. You can do a wrap, which is something that Chris has
Mm.
done, where basically you purchase it with the owner finance. You do it creatively, no money down. You get a note with between you and the seller, but then you turn around instead of renting it out to tenants, you find basically like rent to own um,
Mhm.
uh, tenants, or they're not tenants, but they're people who are maybe don't qualify. So that's another
Mhm.
way too, is like
Yeah.
maybe you don't qualify for a loan, but you want to buy a house. You find somebody like Chris or somebody that has a property and is
Mhm.
looking to get people in there that are good people, but they take on the responsibilities of the house. So then you create a note between yourself and the new I guess the new tenants, but they're not really tenants. They'll
Mhm.
eventually own it, but you get to ask for a down payment, which
Mhm.
usually they'll have the money, they just don't have the credit for a loan.
Right. Right.
So they're usually more than often grateful, and then you have a mortgage between you and the new people moving into the house, and that pays for between the
Yeah.
note between you and the seller. So you're
You become
netting
the
money
bank.
without
Yeah.
having tenants. You become the bank. Exactly. That's usually what I say to sellers. And you're not having to do anything. You just have the notes, and you're not having to take care of the property. You don't have to deal with tenant issues. You really are the bank. You're just collecting checks at that point
Right.
without any responsibility. So that is also a really good option to use in what we call wraps, where you're wrapping
Mhm.
um, the mortgage between you and the original owner or seller.
Yeah, that's awesome. So we're just kind of explaining like there there's so many options like, to get into, your first investment property, and we've dropped a lot of gems on how to, and what options there are, but going into our third tip is, always think bigger, or what's the bigger
Yeah.
picture for you, right? Is it you want to get your dream home, or is it you want to have a portfolio of investment properties, or even a portfolio of single family properties, or you want to have an
Hmm.
apartment complex at one point, or what's kind of what's your big picture, and understanding that part of it, because then you can have the roadmap, right, to
Hmm.
get there, right, and utilize different strategies that we've kind of laid out, just on what direction you go to achieve the bigger picture for you, right? So I know that you know, G has a specific goal to, get a house here in Los Angeles, right? And she's working through that, and you're working through that. And, for me, I want to have multiple multifamily units, right? So I think I'll utilize both, the house hacking and then also relationships with uh, investors, right? So I think
Right.
the bigger picture is very important on how and what direction you go, right?
Yeah, I love that. I think the bigger picture should always go back to like your goals, which you should have written. Like, we talked about goals last week. Is
Hmm.
you should have the high level understanding of like, what do I want my life to be when at some point. How do I envision my life? And maybe it's like I envision 1,000 units. Okay, well, how am I going to get there? And that's where you kind of work towards that.
Hmm.
Um, so I think definitely picking the strategy. You don't have to do anything crazy at once. So just kind of let the opportunity. If you're going out there and putting yourself out there, making offers, like the right opportunity will present itself. If you have a W-2, definitely go the house hacking route if your goal is rental portfolios. If you just want to buy a primary residence and then just kind of
Hmm.
take your time buying a rental here and there, like then do it. There's definitely opportunities to do that. I like, shout out to Sophia.
Yeah.
Um, what do you guys think about the burr? I that's kind of I realize we haven't really touched upon that,
No,
but
we
that's
did.
kind of part of the house hacking portion. So a burr stands for buy, renovate, rent, refinance, and repeat, I
Right.
believe.
Yeah.
Um, and a lot of people talk bad about it, but I think it's a great opportunity for those that, want to build their rental portfolios. I've heard of many people who have successfully done it that way. So what it
Hmm.
looks like is like, okay, say I buy a property for 100K, but it's worth 150 if I renovate it, right? So
Hmm.
I whether I inherit tenants or not. So in my situation, I'm house hacking this house. So I buy it for 100K. I live in it for a year. I renovate it, and then at the 12-year mark, I'm like, okay, I'm ready to finance or refinance. So I had all fixed it up. It's worth 150K. I get an appraisal in. They say it's worth 150K. So I
Hmm.
get the difference. I get a check basically from the bank that is the difference between, I
Hmm.
believe, the like what you bought, like your equity in it. That's why
Right.
it's like for
Right.
me, it's like I want to get instant equity when I purchase a property, at least to get started. A lot of times we purchase a property that is all fixed up, so there's like no equity really to. If you were to refinance, you have to pay it down more, which you can still get tenants in there and pay it down. But if
Hmm.
I'm buying instant equity right off the bat, that's more money that will be refinanced to me. So the bank cuts you a check, you get tenants in there, and then you repeat the process. So you find another
Hmm.
property with that check, and do another FHA.
Hmm.
For those who don't know, you can't have two FHA loans at the same time.
Hmm.
Usually, when you refinance from an FHA, you usually refinance back to a conventional, and
Yeah,
then
that's correct.
get another property with the FHA.
Hmm.
So that you're literally building it back up. And maybe you don't go the FHA route. Maybe you just buy a property cash. Like who knows? It depends on like what
Hmm.
you're looking for. But then if you were to continue the house hacking, I find another house. Maybe I find another 4 unit, another quad. I live in it, fix it up, refinance again, do it the same way. So I think it's a great opportunity to do that. I wouldn't. Maybe at some point I'd probably be like, okay, let me go the creative route.
Hmm.
And keep doing it. But I know people who have hundreds and hundreds of units using the burst strategy, which is great because you're not using any of your money and you can net a little bit. And that refinance check isn't
Hmm.
taxed.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you have to use it towards some assets. Don't
You
go
know,
out and
yeah.
buy a car with that. I know people who have,
Right,
but yeah,
right.
I mean that's it's untaxed money,
Yeah.
that has
Yeah.
that, you didn't have to pay for anything. So it's really, I think it's a great, tool to use. Maybe at some point you're better off doing creative,
Right, right.
because by then you kind of have a sustainable business. You got income coming in. But yeah, what do you think about the burr?
No, I think it's a good strategy too. I think we skipped over that strategy. Thanks, Sophia, for bringing that up because I think it gives a lot of people an opportunity to, take advantage of, you know, um, getting this off the ground and getting started, within. Um, the real or the your investment property too. And then I know a lot of the times, you think of the burr strategy with single family and, kind of
Hmm.
more of a fast turnaround. But like you're saying, you could hold it and rent it for a year to accumulate a lot of that equity that's going, especially in California, right? And
Hmm.
then refinance at that time, or even 6 months, because the market may be really great to where you
Right.
can actually accumulate that equity in 6 months and then refinance at
Yeah.
that time. So you definitely, goes back to understanding your market too. What's the turnaround on the equity? What are basically the rents in that area too, and what are all these things, that we kind of cover, apply to all the strategies that we're, explaining to you guys right now. So it is definitely a situation where you have to. The burr is a great strategy. Creative financing is a great strategy. House hacking is a great strategy. It's just what's going to fit for you, and what's going to, what is your budget? What is your finance situation? So you just got to sit down and understand, you know, what your big picture is, one, two, what your budget is, and then what, you know, direction you're going to go. And then you just do the research and due diligence on that particular strategy, right? So I think it's definitely a situation where one of these strategies is going to work for you. We're utilizing maybe one or two strategies that are working for us, and maybe down the future we might do more burrs, or we might do more creative financing, or a subject to. But it just all depends on, you know what direction we're going personally and what our big picture is, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, like Bam said, shout out to Bam, just do it. I think,
Yep.
again, we try to overcomplicate it. We
Mm.
overcomplicate everything. Just take it step by step, you know, partner with somebody or ask questions, with somebody
Mhm.
who's done it before and be like, hey, what was your process like? And that will make you feel more confident if you want to partner with somebody that's done it before. Like for me, I've never done a rehab. So if anything, maybe I would do the 2 or 3K loan if it made
Mhm.
sense. But depending on the property, if if say I'm like, doing my wholesaling business and I run into a seller that wants to sell their 16 unit property and maybe
Mhm.
they want some down. Maybe they don't. I mean, that's ideal. I may be like, hey, Tim, let's partner on it. Let's do
Mhm.
50-50. You have boots on the ground there, who
Mhm.
can manage the property. I'll bring, I can get a loan. All right. Like there's so many ways, like definitely lean on each other, to do that because the biggest thing is like people don't take action. And again, it goes to executing. They talk themselves out of it.
Mhm.
So, put yourself out there, like reach out to somebody who's done it before. I guarantee there's somebody in your network who has purchased a house or like as an investment. Not to say
Mhm.
maybe they've done it the right way, but it doesn't matter. Like, get some get some knowledge of like how people have
Mhm.
done it, and you'll kind of know how to navigate. I think it's also really important if you go the loan route is like get in
Mhm.
touch with a really good lender who will kind of like if you have a lender that kind of educates you as you go and gives you tips. I think that's the ideal lender, who wants to help you out. There's a lender that just want the money.
Right.
But there's good ones out there that, you know, can definitely point you in the right direction. And relationships, right? Like find people with money.
Yeah.
Get in rooms with people with money.
Mhm.
Um, and you'll easily find that it's not money that's the problem. It's
Mhm.
like, you know, finding the right, it's putting yourself out there, finding the right opportunity.
Right. Right. And it's just a situation where I think, like we were saying, I think Bam was saying, just do it. Just get into it. Like, you're building these relationships, and hey, contact us. We're on Instagram. These are our handles. So we'll be happy to answer any questions for you at any time, and kind of educate you a little bit more, and we may JV with you or partner up with you if it's a great opportunity. So it's definitely a situation where we're here to provide value for you, and
Hmm.
if you contact us, we'll definitely hit you back. Give us some time, but we're busy, but at the same time, we'll always hit you back for sure. So.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's the whole reason why we created this podcast is like
Hmm.
to add value where we can. We don't believe in you know, and maybe it's the you and how we
Hmm.
roll is like we don't believe in keeping knowledge to ourselves. We believe in like
Sure.
spreading the wealth of knowledge because again, had there been a podcast like this and I somehow stumbled upon it, I would have my eyes would have been like
Yeah.
I would have been exposed to so much that would have again kind of triggered some curiosity for me to go in like, okay, let
Hmm.
me research what's an FHA loan.
Right.
How do I, you know, where do I get started? And there's tons of content. It's not just us.
Hmm.
So again, we'd be more than happy to do that.
Yeah.
There's so much that we definitely could have covered. You
Yeah.
know, whether it's short-term rentals. I know Airbnbs are really
Yeah.
popular right now. But honestly, we can go on and on. Like
We
this call
could.
can go
We
on and
could.
on.
Yeah, I just want to share a story real quick. I know we're getting close to the end, but this, after I graduated from college, this story stuck with me for a long time, right? And it goes back into the house hacking, but it's a different way. So I had read this one um, college student, right? He got a house near his campus, right? And then what he did was is that his parents co-signed on it. This is an example if your parents are willing to help you or someone's willing to help you to
Mm,
get a loan, right? On a house. And then so his idea was is that, hey, you co-sign on it, I'll get the house, I'll rent the rooms out to other college students, and then that would pay for the mortgage of the house, right? And he did that for
mhm,
4 years, lived in the house for 4 years, went to school, graduated. After he graduated, he sold the house, paid off his tuition, and had money to start his own business. Right.
mm,
So that was kind of goes back to house hacking, but it's a different way of doing it. Right. But it also, you know, he was able to, one, pay off the house, and then two, pay off his student loans. So he had no debt. And then that also helped his credit tremendously during,
sure.
right,
Coming out of
coming right out
college
of
too.
college. Right. And then he started to, started his own business, right? I don't remember what the business was that he started. He should have started real estate, honestly, but
Right.
yeah, right. But I don't think it was real estate. But just the the reason I share that story is because I thought back to that and like that should have triggered me to actually research more on how other ways of doing that. But you know I'm at my stage in life just because of all the choices that I made, and I'm
Right.
happy with that, right? Because it got me to this point and got me here, got me on this podcast, got me connected with you, G, and then got me connected with everybody else within this group. So it's definitely a situation where um, you know that story resonated with me because that person thought outside of the box on how they were going to pay, the mortgage off, so their parents didn't have to worry about that, and then also the
Right.
tuition, right? And then he had some money to spare to actually start a business. So it's just a
Yeah.
different way of thinking, so.
Yeah. I love that story. I think that in a nutshell shares like the beauty of real estate, like what you
Mhm.
can do like that. And that's something we didn't touch. And I'm glad you mentioned it. It's like, yeah, have your parents somebody you trust, a family member, whatever, co-sign. Because
Mhm.
if the mortgage is being paid for, that ups their credit too, because they're
Yep.
consistently, getting payments. So that's I think uh, is real estate. There's so many things you can do with it. It's like
Right.
it's crazy. You can like do a whole diagram of the different ways, and even then, that wouldn't be enough. So I think it's just putting yourself out there,
Yeah.
connecting with people, and not it's never too late either. I think that's something I
No.
wanna end.
Yeah.
Like, I know people that, have started house hacking in their 50s, even 60s, so it's like, don't think, like, I'm at a certain age, "Well, I'm too old to do that." Like, you're never too old, like, to
Mhm.
house hack, live in a unit, and work your way from that and retire. Like, I know
Mhm.
people who have retired doing, like, the BRRRR strategy, doing
Right.
house hacking, where the income they're getting and cash flow is such a huge part. We
Mhm.
didn't really mention that enough, but that's part of the cash flow is like, the expenses versus like the profits that come in. So if your mortgage is like your mortgage and all the expenses to run the house is like say $3,000 total, and
Mhm.
you're renting it out for 3,500 or $4,000, that's like $1,000 net that goes in your pocket
Right.
every month. They call it like mailbox money.
Mhm.
That's what's gonna break you from the cycle, from the 9 to 5
Mhm.
cycle. That's $1,000 in your pocket, otherwise you wouldn't have had.
Mhm.
So imagine you had like 10, 20, 30 of those. That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
where I know people have retired from that. So it's never too late to do it. If you have the opportunity to buy a house, like, and you don't have any rental portfolios, like, why not do it? Like, what is there to lose,
Mhm.
in going that route? So I just kind of wanted to end with that.
Yeah. I mean, that's a really good point, and I think we've given you a lot of options, and we've given you a lot of things to think about. But what one thing that we want you to do is just take action on it, right? And you're going to be ahead of the curve of 50% of people that are looking into it that haven't took action, right? So you're already
Right.
ahead of
You're
them.
one step ahead.
Exactly. So, with my first, investment opportunity, I just jumped in. I didn't know what I was doing at the time. I had a community I could rely on and ask questions and stuff like that, but I just jumped in. So, just go
Right.
ahead and take action. We're definitely a resource for you. We're happy to be a part of your journey, and within real estate or any business that you kind of start. I know our bread and butter is real estate, so but we just want you guys to take action, and you know um, definitely subscribe to our channel and hit that
So
bell
reminders
button.
every
Yep,
Wednesday,
yep, yep.
at 8 a.m.
That's it.
Pacific
That's it.
time, 11 a.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Central. Guys, we're going to be dropping this kind of knowledge. We have a long list of guests too that we'll be bringing on,
Yes. Yes.
and
I'm
sharing
excited.
their experience. It's going to be so great because it'll kind of solidify what we've been talking. It's not just us. We're not talking out of thin air. There's people
Hmm.
actually like executing and taking action, and you kind of see the results of that. So I'm really excited to bring on the guests. But yes, tap in with us every Wednesday mornings. You see our handle. There we go. Right here
Yeah, there you
at
go.
Real Estate Gladia on Instagram, at Mr. Tim REI. I know. I'm like on Instagram. And we have a lot of stuff in store as well. We'll make sure we'll do a better job of providing links as well in the description for you guys to reach us easier. But thank you guys so much. Really appreciate everybody who hopped on and
Yeah.
supported and asked questions, and we really appreciate you guys.
Yeah, definitely. We appreciate you. Thanks for tapping in, and then we'll see you next week.
All right. Peace out, y'all.
See ya.